took off then, didn't I?
Oh,
Sorry.
I just switched it over. Hello and welcome to DCP SideQuest, episode number 118. We have a very special episode. Alex Roe is here today with us. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on the show.
This is when my voice suddenly gets a lot higher. I sound a lot more
it's quite a it's an epic day. There's a lot going on, from Elden Ring play test to Halo dropping today. They had Forza last week, so it's definitely a packed episode of things to talk about. But we're very excited to have you on the show and talk about the composition process for video games. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so if you could just let us know what it is that you do for video games, so we can kind of learn about that process.
Yeah.
Makes me feel a lot more professional suddenly. I like
it. You mean don't just play games all day?
I don't. Yeah, I've been composing for like some years now, but have now recently gotten a bit more, with Grime. Iron Oath comes out next year. I mean, what would be a good question to start with there to figure out some things?
What got you into composing for video games?
I was about 16, and so actually all my life I wanted to make video games, and I wanted to program. So I was trying to learn like programming. I remember at the time I was learning HTML because I thought I'll start here. I really like websites. That was a big thing back then, and then I went to college, and I just started to lose interest very quickly. And then for some reason, something in my mind says, you know what, you really like music. You like the piano, give it a go. So I started to play a little bit. And then very quickly, I found myself like quitting college courses and starting music. And I downloaded this program at the time called Fruity Loops. And that was Fruity Loops 3.1 back then. And now it's
now it's FL Studio
21.
Right?
Yeah. And I just kept plugging away at it, and it was just fun. That was the great bit at the start, because it was fun, and just discovering what was just, because I've loved video game music my whole life, ever since the NES, the SNES particularly, because I've made a SNES remix album with the SNES sound fonts before, and that's a lot of fun, because
cool.
There's something, because they sound like real instruments, but they don't. But there's something really special about them.
Nostalgic,
and
right?
Yeah, there's a really heavy nostalgic tone to those sounds, and every game sounded a little different, from Super Mario World to Chrono Trigger, just so different. And
real quick, can you explain for people, because I don't know if many people understand that, like, you can actually get the sounds and compose with them from those games, like how that works?
There's lots of different ways. What me and my friend used to do is there's the ROM, which is like that. I think it's the SMC. I can't remember now. And you can actually rip the sounds from the actual game themselves. And so a lot of people used to do that, and they'd make sound fonts, they don't really exist anymore.
Like sample libraries, right?
Yeah, there's a company. I can't remember their name now, but they sell like a big SNES Mega Drive sample pack that you can use to write music with now, if you just want it out of the box. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, I just had a real love for the SNES in particular. Just that sound was just magic to me. Yeah.
It's nostalgic type of, it hits you in the endorphins, like brings back childhood memories of hearing how some of those games work. It's like when people hear the Halo theme from Combat Evolved, they're like, oh, all these emotions start flooding back. It's the same thing with hearing just like the coin pickup in a Mario game from like the OG games. Like it immediately calls back to that. Yeah.
Which is just two notes, just an octave going ding, ding, and
with that like specific timbre, right?
Yeah, sound effects is a whole other world to get into, when like you realize you can create like any sound effect you want just on a keyboard if you do it a certain way. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a PlayStation 1 game called Vagrant Story.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Yep.
It's a fantastic game, but when you realize that every sound effect in that game is just made through audio, nothing recorded. It just blows your mind.
That's cool.
And that's something I'd like to learn more about, but it's a whole different field to master, and it'll take a long time to figure out.
Sound effect design, synthesis, stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. So what made you, I guess, like, what was the first thing that you got into for composing for a game? Like, what was the first, like, project that would suddenly you were like, oh, I'm making something here for a project for someone else or something?
Well, a big thing was OC Remix. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've heard of those guys. Back then, because some people ask me these days, how do I get into music? Yeah, where can I learn? And one of the best ways to learn these days is you think of something and you YouTube it because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to
Yeah.
learn is on YouTube. But
Yeah.
It's awesome.
back then, it's great. Yeah, I mean, like when I wanted to learn Photoshop, it's like, how do I make fire? How do I make fire on YouTube? And it's there. But it's the best thing is when you're around a community of people that all feel the same way as you do. And there's something there where you collaborate or or even feel competitive. That's a great feeling as well, because you want to one up each other, and it's like not necessarily to beat them, but it's because you want to impress them or something. So
Right.
OC Remix back then was just this huge pool of talent and people that just wanted to make video game remixes. And
Cool.
there's a lot of composers today that come from that background. And I don't know what that background would be today, but I definitely wouldn't be here without OC Remix.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
that was an incredible place to be.
So you got,
But you said it.
yeah,
Oh,
I
sorry.
guess like the beginning of composing stuff, and like you went from wanting to make video games and then realizing that you could do music, and then I guess what's the leap right there? You know?
What, the leap from wanting to make video games to make music?
No, from the you've decided
Oh,
you want to make music. Now, how do you get like you said, there's the remix thing, and then I guess
yeah.
beyond that.
Well, one of the first biggest projects I ever had, someone had heard a remix I did from Chrono Cross, and they emailed me and they said, I'm making a Chrono Trigger fan game. Do you want to do the music for it? And
Cool.
back then, that was just exciting to be asked. So it's like, yes. As well. Nowadays, you want to ask a lot of questions and figure things out. So I was like, yes, I wanted to do a Chrono Trigger fan game. And that first one was called Chrono Crisis. And that whole period of my life was really special to me because I loved JRPGs at the time, from SNES, PlayStation 1, PS2. That's like the golden era of JRPGs. And when they said, okay, we want you to make a song for the main character's house, I'm like, okay, and I get excited and I start like writing like a 2-minute song. It's like, it doesn't have to be 2 minutes. It's just his house. But it's so exciting. I want to write this song for the house. And I think when you work on a fan project like that, you learn a lot about restraint, because it's very easy to get excited and want to write tons of music. And as you get older and you realize that you have to like make this a job and stuff, if we talk about the Iron Oath at one point, actually there's a bunch of music that was cut out of that game, which is like gutting for me because I loved it. But you have to sort of restrain yourself and really tie yourself to the development of the game, and be like when I worked on Grime, I would talk to Yarden a lot about each of the bosses, and he'd give me like all these references, and I'd play the build, and I'd really get a feel for like what would actually sound good if I come to this area and in the area, and yeah, so yeah, it was a great creative period, but I wrote too much music.
The learning to support the game as opposed to writing music to be the center type of concept. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's easy to overdo stuff to try to make it be the main thing, but really, like,
Yes.
you have to make sure the music is supporting what's happening on screen.
Yeah, I mean, I've done different things, but see, when you're doing music, you're doing a soundtrack and it's all your work and you get really excited about it. And with a video game, it's like 50% of your senses are through the eyes, the visual stimulus, and the other 50% is the ears. So you feel like you command such a huge space, and that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And then when you're writing for like a JRPG, you just want to fill that with music so much because you get so many ideas. And but then obviously development of a video game is like some people say it's a miracle some games even get made. And
Yeah.
yeah, you have to just keep yourself in sync with the team and go with them.
It's kind of learning to be a game dev, right? Because I think they all
Mm,
go through the same thing of it's like, I have all these ideas and I want to make this really cool stuff, but you can't make everything because it's not enough time, there's not enough budget. So I guess it's a similar thing where you have to keep it streamlined into what you can do and not just what you want to do.
mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why
Going
a
back to what you.
director.
Sorry.
No, sorry. No, that's why a director's really good. A director can really rein everyone in and get exactly what the game needs to be.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, going back to what you were saying before about like when, say, with Grime, you sort of, you play a build and you kind of get a feel for it. As someone that, I can't play any instruments. I'm not a musical person. I appreciate music, but I'm just curious. Let's run through a scenario. Let's say you're like, all right, I've played this build, I've seen this boss, I've got a feel for it. Where do you draw your inspiration from? Like, what's your thought process to be like, let me generate this?
Well, first of all, I don't play an instrument either. I just use this.
Well, I mean, that's an instrument. I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, hold up. This for people listening. Alex just held up a mouse. So are you saying that you don't play keys or anything? Keyboard or
I
you?
used to play usually when you see composers, they have a little MIDI keyboard next to their typing keyboard
Mhm.
and they work with that. But I just got so accustomed to figuring out my ideas by just tapping out melodies
Wow.
through MIDI.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I've written a lot of music in my lifetime. So, it's see, everyone's a little bit different. There's different composers. Some of them are a bit more melodic. You take like Bear McCreary, he's very melodic. He writes incredible music. And then you get, I'm trying to think of people that are a bit more atmospheric. The guy who did the Blade Runner 2049
Sure.
soundtrack,
Yeah.
very atmospheric.
Vangelis.
So, they have different ways of like coming into their music. I'd get a lot of people asking me, do you think of the melody first? Do you think of the chords? It depends on the song, but so a battle track might have me thinking about the rhythm first, or
Yeah.
a character piece might make me think about what the melody is like, because that's the thing that says that's them. So yeah, it really depends on the piece. But with Grime, like you said, I'd have the build. What I would do, I would play the boss, well, obviously in silence. There's no music. And I would record as much of the boss as I can without dying, obviously. And I just record that and have that playing in the background as I composed. And see, I think I was saying to Watts earlier that said something like, when you watch Hollywood composers in interviews, you think, wow, I'm going to learn something really profound here. And they'll say, so, Danny Elfman, how did you come up with your soundtrack for Spiderman? And he says something like, I got stressed for 4 weeks, and then I realized I had a job to do.
Procrastinated right to the very end, and then finally just wrote some music.
And then you get another composer, and he says, I was in the bathroom, and the tap was slightly on, and he went drip, drip, and it gave me this idea. I swear to God, these are the things they say. And you're like, I'm learning nothing from this. It's entertaining, but I think I don't know if it's from experience, but oftentimes when I write a song, something just pops up in my head and I can't really explain it, and I just go with it. And something I often do is, say I've written 1 minute of music, and I'm not really sure what to do next. I'll take a step back, I'll play the song, and I'll let it loop over and over. And at some point, once it gets to where I've stopped writing the music, something will just play on in my head. And I go, that's a good idea. And then I go back and I just do what my head was telling me, and just it's a weird sort of other composers have described this as, am I writing the music, or is there something telling me how to write the music for me? Like I'm not exactly saying spiritual, but when
Yeah.
you are in a when you're deeply creative, you do wonder where
Mm.
that energy comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that inspiration
Yeah.
and
A
the
flow
spark,
state, I think, is
right?
what they call it often. But yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Actually, interesting with flow state. When I say I'm writing an album, I really dislike, say, write something and come back to it a week later, or usually my albums are done within 1 month, and I work on them. I'll finish a song every couple of days or something, and I just keep cracking on with it because I feel like if I lose that energy, that flow state, then it'll just be even harder to come back to it. And there's a really great feeling when you're just thinking about something constantly and it's just working and coming
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure. Gets addicting too. You don't want to
Yeah,
step away from
it
it,
does.
right? Could be tough to take breaks because you're thinking, man, I don't want to step away from that feeling that you have being in that flow state and then have to re-up. Like when you take time off, it's good for you, but at the same time, you're thinking about how much time is it going to take for me to ramp back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A question about tools of the trade. What's your go-to DAW right now for composing? Is it still
Always
FL
FL
Studio?
Studio. It is
Yeah.
FL Studio. Years ago, I remember trying different ones like Reason, Cubase. I had a, just gave them all a little try, and FL Studio was just comfortable.
Yeah.
I guess is the term. I think if you're not required any more of what you know you're capable of, you're just comfortable to keep writing as you are. And I probably should try different things. I think a lot of people use Reaper now because there's a lot of power in that some composers say that helps them. I think Will Roger II, he worked on Mortal Kombat 11.
Hmm.
When he did Call of Duty World War II, he used Reaper to do the soundtrack, and the entire soundtrack is just in one project file. Like he
Wow.
opens it up, and
Oh, wow.
all 4 hours of music are in the project.
Don't crash,
And
don't crash, don't crash,
yeah,
don't crash.
exactly. But then I use FL Studio in a similar way. Do you use FL Studio?
No, I use Ableton, Logic Pro, and
Okay.
Studio One as well. But when I'm doing composing, it's usually Studio One.
Okay. Because other doors, they you have your piano roll, and then you just write a song in that. In FL Studio, you write in patterns. So pattern 1, you might decide to write a 4/4 beat, and then you put it in the song editor, and the song editor is just filled with little patterns that you've made. And I didn't like that, so I just use one pattern to make one song.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
I can go back to that project file and go to pattern 2, and I have all those instruments still, and I can just write
Right. Yeah.
another song. So Grime is technically in one project file, just in different patterns.
Inspired from that same setup across everything.
I've worked like that for a long time. When I was starting off, FL Studio was really famous for writing beats and electronic music. So so a lot of people would like gloat. They'd say, "Oh, I've written a song with 100 patterns," and like, that sounds cool. But when I was trying to write more original music, I found myself getting really repetitive. I was relying on pasting the patterns too much. So I thought that's a bad habit for me. I'm going to try and write a song in one pattern, and then that made me think like, well, how can I write a more interesting song this way? So I think that's well, that goes for anyone. If you think you have a bad habit, you have to try and find a way to challenge that.
Yeah.
And see if you can come out of it a bit differently.
Or if you get comfortable doing something one way, and then
Yeah.
you need to challenge yourself to do it a different way to like see what other creative things come to you. I'd
Mm.
imagine that FL Studio also is more friendly for like the mouse approach, because it kind of
Yeah.
was built from like the tracker perspective, so it feels like
Yeah.
the support for mouse writing seems like it would be really good for that.
Yeah, I think FL Studio is actually not bad for like live recording now, but back in the day, I think a lot of people had problems with that, so they chose other doors to do that.
Yeah.
It might be better now, but like I don't record anything live.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes
so
I'll record
fascinating.
my voice in weird ways. There's a song from my Elden Lords album, which is like a soft ambient world track. I was trying to think of something that would make it unique, and I just like got the microphone on and I started doing really weird whistles. I just whistled in lots of weird ways. And then I go to FL Studio, I open Contact, which is a sampler that allows you to use other sample libraries or edit your own samples, WAVs, anything. And I was just thinking of ways of like stretching it, tweaking it, doing some signal processing to create odd sounds and to make it feel a bit more mystical. And yeah, but Night of the
That's
Hunt,
cool. Yeah.
I'd shout and scream in the microphone and to make beast sounds. I even got my dog to do like a howl, and that was really fun. Yeah.
That's amazing.
You have to pay him royalties.
Yeah.
Biscuits. Biscuits.
Well, you do really lush arrangements. Like listening to Grime, listening to your most recent album, like it's very detailed orchestral arrangements. So I think it's really surprising that you don't play any of it with a keyboard into the, live record it.
Yeah, I mean, thank you.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way I'm trying to think how other people, because obviously I worked with Yuka Kitamura. I regret not asking her more about her composing process, but we wrote a small album together, and what we decided to do was I suggested something of a relay where she would write 1 minute and then I would write 1 minute and we would follow and try to seamlessly like make something after the other person and create like a really nice arrangement that way. I know the first track we did with Spring, I remember she was saying she was singing melodies and then she decided to record one, and that's how she got the idea to write the orchestra. But yeah, everybody writes a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure.
It's nice.
Yeah.
What's your go-to orchestra sample library to work with when you're starting out?
Cine samples. Yeah, there's a lot of there are so many sample libraries that I don't know how someone now gets into that and decides what to buy. It's crazy, there's like 100 different string libraries.
Oh yeah.
And I think I wish there was an easier way to try them, because I know like you hear a demo for say like Spitfire is a London-based company. They do some really nice samples. I remember they had some really nice string libraries, and I remember trying one and going, I just don't like this. It's not me. I don't know how to describe it, because obviously if you wanted to, you could write a nice song with those samples. When I tried Cine samples, I was like, I love this. This is me.
Nice.
And that didn't change for a long time. And I still use them. I still think they're some of my favorite orchestral samples out there.
Nice.
Is that what it sounds like individual like recordings of strings being plucked? Is that what you're talking about by string samples?
Kind of, yeah. It depends on how it's played. Plucked is simpler because it's just plucked and it's just one recording. Whereas bowing, for example, needs to be scripted so it doesn't sound like two samples are like coming one after another. Like you'd hear a click or
you have to have
so that's
multiple
basically
versions of the same bowing to make it sound humanistic or real.
Exactly.
Otherwise, the human ear can definitely tell when it's the exact same note over and over, like the exact same recording.
Some composers are very specific about their samples. Some of them want round robins, which is the way if you press the same note over and over again, it will start a little differently based on how it's recorded.
Interesting.
Some people are very specific about microphone positioning. So if I was playing right here, someone would probably want, well, close is the best example, but someone might be very specific about a microphone somewhere back there capturing the same sound because they want a specific like room feeling, and which is
different feel and mix.
a bit different to reverb, but reverb solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, it goes deep, and like it shows for the cost, because a lot of like the really good libraries are $500,000, $600,000 to just have software that does this stuff. So it's cool though. It's really fun to like play an orchestra library. Yeah, with all the expression, all the articulations. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm.
Awesome. Um, how long did it take you to do all the Grime music? Just a quick like from start to finish. What was the rough estimation of that project?
Basically, I'd say from February this year to May.
Nice.
Oh, it's pretty fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Right.
Kind of. Because there was a point late last year, Yarden was saying, I need a boss track, Alex. I need a boss track. You got to get it to. I was like, yes, yes. Okay. And because I had a lot of stuff going on last year, and Yarden was actually very understanding. He's actually a really good director, and like really privileged to work with someone like that. He's got a really good head for it, and I think Grime came out fantastic. I think it's a great game.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's a
And
really great game.
then at first there was a lot more conversations about the music. We chatted more about the main theme, as Yarden had a very specific idea of what he'd like in the theme, which would be breaths and crunching sounds. He was like, "This is what I think represents the game and the protagonist." And I was saying, "Yeah, that's a good idea, but I'm not a sound designer. I'm a composer." So
Mm.
we also chatted with the sound designer, Sean Secker, and he started coming up with some sounds. I started to implement that into the main theme, and he was like, "No, this is wrong. I don't like it." So I kept coming up with some like variations. And then luckily for me, it got to a point where Yarden was like, "Oh, I'm so busy. Do what you want." And and that allowed like a bit more like freedom. But it was nice because I think the more he trusted me to do the soundtrack, I think he's really happy with it. I think he
It's
told
great.
me recently he was like humming one of the songs or something, which is like, I'm a big advocate for melodies. I think melodies are. I like all sorts of music, but melodies for me are just what I've loved like since the SNES days. So
Right. Yeah.
I always think about melodies.
Nice. Yeah, it has a very Grime specifically feels like it has like a kind of a like a Eastern Europe classical type of inspiration behind it. I don't know if that's intentional by any means, but
It, but it is because yeah, we didn't talk about that, but weird because Yarden is from wait, I got him blank. Where's he from?
Israel.
Israel. Okay. No, right. And I remember thinking like, oh, it would be like a nice nod to him if I had those like tones and melodies sort of like come in a little bit, just sort of like
Mm.
but I love that sound as well. I even used a little bit of that in Elden Lords as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
It's a gorgeous scale to me. That's so wait, I can't do that. It's in Grime. Go listen to Grime.
Yeah. Very cool. So you're
Mm.
obviously a fan of Dark Souls games, right?
Mm.
And you're a fan of, or you're excited about Elden Rings, right? You made a like a tribute album, or is it a tribute album? Would you call it that, or
Um, it's a hard one, isn't it? Like if I was to plug it, it is an original album inspired by the video game.
inspired by
Mm.
Elden Rings?
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously you're
Mm.
excited about Elden Rings coming out soon, right?
Yeah, I'm like really excited to the point where I don't really want to see it. Like,
I think a lot
I
of us are like that, where we get to the point where we know we are going to buy a game, and we're like, I don't need to see anymore. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm buying the game. I can discover it by myself.
Right.
So
yeah
totally understand.
Well,
yeah I
last
don't
go for it.
no I don't mind like a trailer because I think
Mm.
well some trailers give away. I think it was Dark Souls 3. Someone said don't watch the release trailer. Do not watch that. I was like, okay, I think it gave away too much, but um yeah, I don't mind a trailer, but like I remember with Bloodborne as well, there was a closed network test. Or was it
Mm.
open? I can't remember. And it was the start of the game, and I remember thinking, I don't want to start Bloodborne and know it for
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're just rushing to get to the next bit, and that's the way I feel about it. But
Mm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can't
There's
stand that when you play a demo or something and it's like the first slice of a game, and then you lose access to that, and then a month later you are playing that part again, but you
Mhm.
already know what's there, you know what you're supposed to do, so you're
Yeah.
just bombing through it because it's content that you've
Yeah.
already seen and done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
stand that.
Especially if it's one of those games that starts with like a slow walking segment, and then you're just like,
Oh,
"Don't make me do this again! Not again!
Yeah.
I can't
I
skip
guess
this."
I guess it's probably different if you're younger because when I was a kid, demos were massive. You get
Mm.
a game magazine, you get the demos, and I remember
Yeah.
like Metal Gear Solid, that demo. There's demos back then you play more than actual games these days.
Yeah.
Like you play it over and over. And I remember when
It's
I
true,
finally
man.
got Metal Gear Solid, it's like I've done this bit 100 times. I got to get past the DARPA chief, and you're just like bombing it, like just to get to that. But then you also
Metal Gear
don't.
Solid. Oh no, that was Metal Gear Solid 2. The demo came, or like the intro came with
Oh,
another game, Zona Enders. Zona Enders?
Zone
Ender
of the
Zone?
Enders.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zone of the Enders came with the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo disc. I think I played that more than. Oh, I'd love to know how many hours I put in that. That was
Which was a fake out too, because it didn't include Raiden at all, right?
no, we didn't know that.
Mm.
We didn't know that until the game came out, and then
Yeah.
you do the tanker, and you're like, "This is awesome," and you're like, "Who's this?" You're playing as him the rest of the game. It was a shock. I appreciate it more now, but Metal Gear Solid 2 is special, dude. That game is incredible.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
So, last week something happened in the Elden Ring sphere, and we got to talk about that. Speaking of spoilers, I guess, right? Because would you say it's a spoiler? What you played?
The whole network test?
Yeah. Like
Um,
I didn't get a chance to play it. I didn't get invited. I didn't get a code, so I didn't play it. But I'd be in
I
the
feel
same
like
boat.
I played it because I've been watching Eric's videos 24/7. He's got how many videos? 278 videos now.
Basically, I think we did like 10 videos, something like that.
A
It
lot
was
of videos.
Nice.
it was a lot. I got to Friday. I was like, my body wasn't even tired. You know, those times when just your brain is tired. I was like, my brain is just. I need to sleep.
So how much stuff was in the network test?
A lot of stuff. Like
A lot of stuff.
I
Yeah.
played for 9 hours and still there's things that I didn't do. I beat all of the bosses, but there are a few like really tough mini bosses that I just didn't get to, or I saw them
Bosses
and then I was
plural?
like, that's it.
Mm.
There's more than one boss in a network test?
I mean, yeah, there's
That's-
there's Roman bosses, there's the big boss,
Mm.
there's the dungeon bosses, there's
Good
bosses all over the
Lord.
place.
Sounds
That's what
massive.
threw me off. Like, I'll keep it vague because obviously I don't want to say anything specific because I know you're trying to go in doc. But just like, yeah, I just went in. I went in thinking, oh, it's a test. Yeah, I'll jump on, play for about half an hour. I'll golden line to the network boss, kill him, and then I'll be like, all right, done. And it was like, 10 hours later. Oh, okay. This game is quite big, and this is. I mean, it was like I definitely. I think the way to talk about it, like in a safe way for me, is just like I just got Breath of the Wild vibes playing Elden Ring that I'm just super excited about because, like, I mean, obviously, I'm biased 'cause I just love Zelda so much, but the same way that. The thing that I think I appreciate the most, and it gets me excited for the game, is just because in Breath of the Wild, like everywhere I look, there's something that I just want to go towards. And unlike some open world games where you go there and there's nothing there, Breath of the Wild, even though the world was a little bit barren, I felt like Breath of the Wild did a good job of like, if you go somewhere interesting, there is something interesting there. And Elden Ring did the exact same thing. It's like, if I go there because I can see a castle, it's not going to be like, there's nothing there. It's like, oh, there's something there. And I think that's really,
Yeah.
really good.
Wow.
So,
That's
And there's
exciting.
so many hidden things, like walking
Mm.
past an entrance to a dungeon so many times because it's like down a ledge or something, and it's like,
Oh, I
you
love
know,
that.
you have to really go and explore to find all
Mm.
of the hidden places.
Does it feel as dense as like a Dark Souls game, but just open world?
Mm.
I feel like they have struck a good balance. So
Yeah,
I can only infer this based on the network test layout, but the way that I've understood it is that like the open area, I'm gonna see kind of like a hub that links other things together. Kind of like when you play God of War, you've kind of got the central area which then links to the realms.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's probably going to be how the game plays, because when you go to the castle, it feels much more like Dark Souls. Like there are
does, yeah.
there are fewer pathways. It's more like go down this corridor, take a couple of options, and then you get to the map and it's like go where you want. So I feel like it'll probably be once they open it up, because for the test they obviously blocked off areas and had like an Animus style like invisible wall.
They did, yeah.
I reckon it'll just be like the map is in the middle and then all the things are outside and you just kind of go there. That's how I think it's going to play. Which will be cool. I mean that just means it'll be huge.
It's gonna be huge. Like Dark Souls 2, I think if you did everything, all the side missions and stuff was almost 300 hours. So Elden Ring is gonna be what 500 hours
Yeah.
easily, probably.
And I think there's gonna be like a lot of
Sounds
replay value. I mean, again, I won't say specifics for now, but just there's stuff to find that you're gonna want. Like in any game, in any of the like Souls games, there's stuff that is equipment you want to get and other stuff like that. But like there's some other stuff in Elden Ring that I think is gonna basically make for lots of replayability. And like you're gonna want to pursue that stuff. And in Souls games, like there's missables and stuff, and you're just obviously be like, oh crap, I killed this guy, and as a result, I can't get this thing. Now I got to start again. So I think that aspect of it, paired with an exciting world that you want to explore, is really gonna because it's funny because for me, I wouldn't call myself like a collector when it comes to games. A lot of the time, there's only a few games where I'm like, I want to collect everything, and I feel like this will be. I won't actually collect everything, but I feel like I will play Elden Ring without the golden line mindset I often have in a lot of other games. I'm gonna be like, no, I want to go there, even if it means it's gonna take me another 10 hours, because it's just
fun.
There's the stuff you get from exploring and like going to a dungeon, for example, or killing a world boss or whatever. It's worth it. They reward you heavily, which makes you further incentivized to want to go and search for everything and get everything, because you get good stuff from everything you kill.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was the network test just on PC or was it on PlayStation or?
It was not on PC. It was on everywhere else.
Xbox and PC?
Yeah. No.
Just console, wasn't it?
It was just console.
I mean, sorry, Xbox and PlayStation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How'd it play? How'd it perform? Was it smooth frame rate? Was it jerky?
Super smooth,
jerky?
I had
it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I had one minor worry at the beginning where like it was super chuggy, but it turned out that was just because like I had like a network issue, and then as soon as I cleared up, it was like I had no problems at all. So yeah, super smooth. I literally had considering it was a test, I didn't have any crashes, any bugs, it was really good, which is kind of what you want given that it launches in a few months. So
yeah,
it should be pretty close, right?
Something I'm kind of curious about Elden Ring is so one of the big things about FromSoft games is your build. Your dex build, strength build, or a particular weapon. So is it going to be like a case in Elden Ring where like, oh, I want to do a build of this weapon, but it's like 500 miles from the starting point. I've got to go get that, or I have no idea.
It's hard to say because in what we played, we only played sort of like preset builds, so we didn't get to experiment too much. But I will say that without giving anything away, I definitely think some of the new mechanics that you'll experience will make for some. I feel like, and I'm not a Souls vet, but I feel like it's probably going to have the most diverse build options ever.
Oh, definitely.
Just because of some of the stuff they've added. So I feel like you're going to have some ridiculous stuff that you're going to want to be getting.
That's saying so much when it comes to Souls games.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah. How arcane is it? Is it like, is it pretty self-explanatory, or like what you do and what items do? Or is it one of those games where you get a blue rock and you have to go to the internet to find out what this blue rock does?
I'd say the descriptions were pretty good, right? Like when I got a blue rock, I was like, it described what it did. So yeah, I would say that I didn't find anything really that I was like, don't get it, or a mechanic where I was like, I don't really understand. It seemed pretty well described and intuitive.
That's good.
How familiar is the combat to Dark Souls? People who've played Dark Souls.
Very familiar. It's got a mix of everything though. It really does. It really feels like they've kind of got every game that they've made and put it into Elden Ring in some way. Like the jump attacks feel very similar to like Sekiro. You've got like the backstab sounds and all that good stuff from Dark Souls. Parrying is a little bit more responsive than Dark Souls. It's kind of in the middle. So yeah, it's kind of mixed everything.
Hmm.
It's got a bit of everything, and then more, and then more. on top
And
of it.
more.
Something I've not really checked out. Was there a lot of different music in the network test?
So it's actually kind of weird because when you're running around the world, there's ambient music, which is
Mm.
Yeah.
very different for a Souls game. But yeah, like the dungeon bosses had music, main boss had music, and basically whenever something had a health bar at the bottom, it had a kind of different song to it.
Yeah.
If it was just like a big dude that does a lot of damage, he didn't have his own music. It kind of had like world boss
Mm.
music to say like, "Hey, you are now being attacked by this thing."
It's
Yeah,
kind
those
of
were
quick.
good too.
Did you hear any of the same songs like twice? Because you say it's going to be huge. I can't imagine the scope of the soundtrack if they tried to like make everything unique.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ooh,
I think,
I'm not sure.
yeah, I feel like because the segment they gave us of the world was like it was still big, but it's like it was obviously only a small portion. I didn't notice too many different things. I think I want to say there was a difference on time of day, or maybe I'm getting confused. But yeah, I didn't notice too many different things. I would say the title screen music was epic though.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
man.
is
that
very much is.
when that dropped, I was like, woo.
Historically, they've always had a theme for each boss that's named. So
Mm.
it would be, I think it would be a little strange if they deviated from that because like that's part of the epicness, you know, when you hear so and so's theme come up.
Yeah. Because that's actually something that happened quite a lot in like Monster Hunter. Because like growing up, like Monster Hunter always had unique battle themes for monsters. But then in more recent games, if they weren't like a flagship, some of them fell into like a bucket of just like this is generic like deviant monster music, and it's just like they all had the same thing. And I mean, they still have some of the uniqueness of it. But yeah, I think I see your point. Of like if you lose some of that, you lose a bit of the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some of the like feels like handcrafted.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's why some of those bosses feel so special in Souls games. So
Yeah,
so
I have
much
to see if like
detail.
the open world bosses had the same music because there's two just roaming around in the network test that had the health bar, red health bar,
Mm.
and named. So I have to listen to it and see if they were the same, different.
So when you
I
run
love the
into
idea of running bosses. Oh,
yeah, actually, I was going to talk about world boss. So like when you run into a world boss, do you
Mm.
then have the option to be like, "This is a mistake, my bad, I'm running
Yeah.
away from you," or are you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
locked
Yeah.
in? You're okay. So
Yeah, you're free. Yeah.
there's freedom with the world boss scenario. Like, could you throw some rocks, get him aggroed,
Oh yeah,
and then be
yeah.
like, run
I
away?
I did that like, again. I won't name what it was, but I did. Yeah, one of the ones that I just thought I was like, I'm just gonna try and poke at this little bit. I was like, and this was as soon as I had just started the game, and I'm like, I'm fresh out of the cave. I'm just like, and then I was like, I shouldn't have done this, and I was like, I just like beamed off. I was like, okay, just leave me alone, thank you. And then you can come back later. But no, I think that is actually that's a really really cool theme because again, you're so used to just like I walk through the mist, I fight this boss. So just
Yeah.
knowing that like I mean, one of the times I was busy like sifting through my menu and it just happened to walk past. I was like, I'm not ready for this fight. It's like, hello.
that's
So
a great thing because like you were talking about Breath of the Wild. I think another thing that was really cool about that is you come across a monster and you're like, can I throw a rock at
yeah.
this? Like, am I going to get away with it? And then
Mm.
and then you're like, oh, that's a terrible idea. I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
genuinely reminds me of the first time I ever fought a Lionel. I was super far north
Yeah.
on the map and there was like it was in the middle of this cavern and I just saw this and I was like, that looks kind of cool. And then he beams towards me like, I have made a mistake.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yep. Oh dear, yeah. That's actually that's a thought. Kind of jumping off the music stuff. Are there any genres of games that you have yet to, but you're like, oh, I would really like to compose for this type of game, or maybe a specific game, or like a specific genre? Is there anything you feel like you haven't dabbled in yet that like you want to?
That's because I've done, my people know me for orchestral music. I've
Mm-mm.
done quite a lot of different types of music over the years. Um, I do also feel kind of lucky with the games I've got to do because Grime is like a Metroidvania and a Souls-like, so that's two things
Mm.
ticked. The Iron Oath is like a tactical game, but it's also it's got like a sim element to it as well because you're
Okay.
managing a company and a new game I'm working on called Forlorn. It's been announced and you can look for it, but um it's stuff from like a year or two ago. But that's like a Zelda Souls like, and it's pretty much
Oh.
being made. Yeah, it's pretty much being made by one guy at the moment, and it's really pretty for what it is. It looks like a painting, so it's got like Breath of the Wild style, but
Ah.
it's got like Dark Souls elements in it as well. So talking about the
Mm.
music's been really fun because one of the things I'm really excited about this project is we want a music system where so if I write an orchestral song, there might be like 20 plus parts to it with each instrument, like different brass, percussion, etc. And what we want to do is separate all those stems and have them brought in and out whenever we want that feeling to
Nice.
come
Yeah.
in. So,
Mm.
so like for example, the player might walk into an area where there's like a vista of the world, and it's like, oh, that's a great moment to bring the choir in. And then you walk
Yeah.
forward a bit, and the choir comes out. And then you have these moments where, like, oh, here's the forest, let's bring the flutes in. And I really like that idea because it just lets me compose like a big, crazy song, and then we strip it down and we just make it more useful for more and make it more intimate for different parts of the world.
Yeah.
That's really
And
cool.
Let the
so when I
arrangement dynamically shift with the gameplay.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And that's I haven't done much for that yet because he's still like um coming up with a build, but
Cool.
if everything like goes well, it's it's a really exciting project for me, but it's still very indie. But I really
Mm.
like indie. I love
Mhm.
that field. I feel like if I can do more indie, I'm a very happy person because I just love
Mm.
really well thought out indie games.
Yeah.
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 I guess it kind
Awesome.
of gives you. I mean, I would assume it would kind of also maybe give you a degree of like a bit more freedom because I guess it's smaller teams, right? So there's more chance for you just to
Mm.
be like, I'm gonna lead this and run with my vision for it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's a nice
Mm.
control in that. Well, for example, with FromSoft, I know, that they have some composers, but they also have like an audio director. So
Mm.
it's not just a director,
Mm.
but an audio director as well that is like relaying information, and so there's a lot more people to double check if things are what they should be. Whereas a small indie team, it's like everyone goes, "Oh, that's so cool, man," and then you just get on to the next song.
Amazing.
That's a really nice feeling, yeah.
Mm.
Very cool.
With making your newest album, which is inspired by Elden Ring, how do you make an album on the game that you haven't been able to play yet? You've only seen like trailers and some brief kind of information about it.
Yeah, I haven't actually done this since Bloodborne, because I did an album for that called Born in Blood. I know the titles aren't very creative, but it was like seeing this trailer, and I don't know if it's just a creative thinking, but I actually my first thought of Bloodborne was I imagined like a weird Castlevania game where you have like this big castle area,
Mm.
and it, well, it didn't turn out to be that, but it was really cool to think about that at that time. And
Mm.
obviously, what Bloodborne turned out to be was a lot better. It's a masterpiece. And with Elden Ring, we saw the trailer in June finally, which was
Yeah.
epic. It was so I actually hate that trailer now because it was on this monitor for like a month, just it was just over and over. And I remember I loved everything in the trailer. I loved the sound. I was like, I need to start this sound. Big drums, triplets. A friend of mine says, like, here comes the Vikings. That's his way of describing that sound.
Mm.
And yeah, I read some of the lore, and everyone had this idea that there was going to be like Celtic and Norse inspiration. So actually,
Mm.
most of the tracks are in Norse, but I would Google Norse words and try and think about what they meant, and I probably got it wrong, but uh, in a FromSoft way, I can just keep it cool and say it's vague, like you figure it out. And yeah, and whenever I write an album, it's very tough at the start because I'm trying to figure out the sound, and I knew I wanted to be inspired by God of War because that is also heavily based in Norse and Greek. Yeah, and then you get about 2 or 3 songs in, and you get all these ideas like, oh, what if there was like this beautiful beast wandering the lands? And like, should I hit it? Uh, it's beautiful. Should I hit it? And then you do, and you're like, oh, it's got a song. It's crazy, and you get ideas like that. This Elden Ring has stupidly cool dragons in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
They
does.
look amazing. I was like, I got to do a dragon song, and yeah, you just get little ideas like that. But this was a fun album to do because it was a lot more like a concept album in that I didn't have to think of it like a soundtrack. So I did more like ambient music in it.
Mm.
And I don't often get like the opportunity to do that. So I find that really it's just a nice feeling to do. When you write music all the time, it's just like orchestra screaming in your ears. So when you get to write a soft song for once, you're like, oh, this is nice. Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Forza Horizon 5 lately, and one of my biggest problems with that game right now is how loud it is all the time. Right? It's like you got roaring engines, screeching tires, like some kind of music that's like so loud that you can't hear, your roaring engine or your screeching tire, plus some asshole constantly chattering in your fucking ear the entire game. I'm like, it's. I would love some ambient fucking music in that game as opposed to every
Nice.
game's got every fucking track has to be like a pop hit,
No, I get that, man. You know the Just Cause series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember back in the Just Cause 2 was this big epic open world, blow everything up, big music, exciting. And sometimes I used to just turn the music off and just put like a really chill song on, just driving around the countryside. I was like,
You remember
this
the
is a
original
different game.
Xbox? You used to be able to add your own music onto the hard drive and then
Oh,
play
yeah.
that in game.
Yeah, that was so good.
That was an awesome feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you can't do that now. I remember on the PS4 with Bloodborne, I would try and play my Night of the Hunt songs in there, and it wouldn't let me. I was like,
Oh,
no,
no.
that's not fair.
So
But
Briar,
I get I get what you mean. Like, did you ever play SSX games?
Yeah.
Like SSX2 had like a cool electronic soundtrack, really cool thing. And in SSX3, you got these big pop songs. You got like a radio guy, like, yeah, come on, it's time to snowboard, guys. And it's just like a huge like, and I guess that's like what people love now. That bigger feeling in games.
I don't know. I think this is just bad.
yeah, I think people end up turning it off
Poorly
faster
thought out.
than like you get
I see
like the initial
two-
feel and then you turn it off afterwards.
Mm.
Yeah. I see two people in the comments who are talking about how you can lower the master volume in Forza. It's like the game, I think, is supposed to be bombastic and like wild, but it distracts a little bit from like the actual driving experiences. That's what you're here for, right? It's like you're here to
True, yeah.
ultimately drive a car, and like, you lose some of that experience because there's the EDM is pumped up to 11, and so some lady is talking about how to be Mexican means family and racing, right? It's like this is all just gibberish. You're just talking to talk.
So how you have an advanced setup, Briar, for racing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how is Forza for you? What's your rating?
I mean, the gameplay is fantastic. It doesn't matter if you're on a driving. I play on a driving wheel when I'm up here on the PC, but I play on a controller down on the Xbox in the living room, and in both places it's fantastic. The game controls very well. Each individual car, I find it's so impressive that when I switch from a Mustang to a Ford Focus, like it really feels like a different car, right?
Mhm.
It's like the cars perform so different. The speed feels very different. There's a ton of camera angles, so you can be in the cockpit. You can do that, like, behind the car view, or you can
Drone
be like
shot.
on the front bumper. It's really customizable. I would like if some of the races were a little longer. Feels like 3 laps on most of the races feels a little bit short, so you don't really feel like you're racing so much as like sprinting.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of game. I think it's supposed to be loud and exciting, right? There's some events where the event isn't racing; it's just causing as much chaos as you can in a certain amount of time, and they call it like what's that Spanish wrestling called? With the masks.
Lucha.
Oh.
Luchador?
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it luchador racing, and it's just chaos, right? It's like there's no race. It's just like hit as many things, drift as much, like do as much like ridiculous shit in a car as you can, and we'll score it for you. But it's like everything you do is scored in some way. It's like that's another weird thing about the game. It's like there's like 4 different currencies. You're always getting points for something, but there's no real connection to what are these points good for? Because every time I go to the shop to buy a car, I've got plenty of money. But I don't know what I'm getting XP for something, but I don't know where that XP is used and what it's good for. Do I become a better driver?
Isn't it like skill trees for the cars and all that?
I don't know. Like what do you get how do you get a skill tree for a car?
It was like get more experience points. You spec into more experience points with your skill tree.
Like you can customize the cars. Like there's so much cool about it. You can customize the cars to like the nth degree. You can select 7 different kinds of tire compounds. You can select any kind of wheel you want, any kind of paint job you want, and there's tons of stuff people are putting online where they're doing like complete liveries for all the cars. Like I bought a Porsche that had like this kind of Gulf gasoline livery on it that looked really great, like kind of like a throwback racing livery from back in the 60s. It was really cool. I'm not gonna lie though, I'm really looking forward to Gran Turismo. It's just a little more state and a little bit more about racing as opposed to explosions,
The paint drying of racing games.
Yeah. Well,
could I
a little jazz
ask
in the
a
background. Yeah.
So I was going to ask if I could ask a question about steering wheels, or do you need to move on to other topics?
No, seriously.
No.
Briar's the one to ask.
Briar would love to talk about steering wheels.
No, seriously, because it was nearly a year ago. I was thinking about buying a wheel because I thought there's so many like driving games. This could be excellent, and
Yes.
there's so many different wheels and different price points. And I was just you don't want to buy like a cheap wheel and go, I've made a huge mistake, or like I like flying games. So last year I actually bought like a pretty good flight stick, and then when it came, I was like, this is too much. I don't like this, and I sent it back. And I was like, what's like the perfect steering wheel to go? It doesn't get better than this, and it's not crazy.
I just have like a basic Thrustmaster setup that works on the PlayStation and on PC, so I can play both. What's really cool about it is it's got 3 pedals and it's got force feedback on the wheel, so that you can actually feel when you're losing grip because it starts shaking a little bit. Because that's one of the things you lose when you're playing a simulated driving game as opposed to actually driving a car. Is you can't feel G-forces, right? So they have to like give it to you in some other way, and that's a really convincing way to do it. But what the real piece is it's got a shifter, like an actual shifter that goes on your table, and you can row through the gears like you would in a manual transmission, which is super super fun. But what it gets really good is when you add VR into it, and you're actually sitting in the cockpit of the car. It feels so good that you're sitting in the cockpit of a car, and if you really want to, like if you're sitting in a car with the cockpit where the driver's side is on the right, you got to move the shifter over to the left, right?
Nice.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
and it changes driving. It changes sim driving because you now can look to your right like you would in real life when you're about to take a right turn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you turn the car to go where you're looking, as opposed to when you're just playing on a screen, is you turn the car and then you wait until the car is looking there or the camera is looking there before you turn back. It's a much more intuitive to drive with VR on and with the steering wheel.
I'm sold. I got to get one now. That's
It's just so
I,
immersive. You know, it's like it's something
yeah.
that we've lost in modern gaming. It's like most gaming accessories now are to boost your performance as opposed to boost your
Mm.
immersion into the game, right? It's
Yeah, I'm fully with
gone
you.
different.
I love seeing people excitedly talk about like immersive things. So VR, flight sticks, steering wheels. Actually, there's a game called Project Wingman where I got to play with a flight stick and the headset, but it's the only game that's made me feel nauseous because you get proper whiplash as you're trying to look for like all the enemies everywhere. You play it for about 30 minutes, you go, dude, I gotta lay down. My neck's killing me. And but it's so fun though. That's it. And I just imagine like playing driving games, especially in VR. It's just got to be amazing. And like I played Halo, the Halo Infinite multiplayer. I played that for about an hour. It was good, but I'm so spoiled by VR. Like I miss holding things and shooting people like with my actual hands and stuff. It's it's weird for me to get used to playing flat screen games again.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I haven't adopted VR yet because I'm like I don't feel like it's hit that point yet where like I feel like it still needs one more generation before the frame rates and the hardware can support it for the double images, and the software is there as well. Like I know there is some good titles for sure, and Briar talks about it from time to time as well, but like I just don't feel like there's this, you know, landmark VR title that's coming out every year where I'm like, oh, now we got this to play every year or this next year.
Gotta wait for the metaverse.
Yeah, the metaverse.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of those things you have to love. I guess you could say, you know, you'd only like steering wheel games if you're a driver. You know, like some people might try it once and go, "That was fun for 30 minutes." Whereas for me, VR is now daily. It's replaced most of my other game experiences.
Wow, cool.
So one game I
really?
played. Yeah, so one game I play is called Population One. It's a battle royale. It looks like it rips off Fortnite completely, but it's not, and it's just a lot of fun. You're flying around, climbing, and it's very competitive, and it just does it for me. It's just such fun to play.
Cool.
First-person shooters in VR are really fun. Like loading the gun and cocking the gun, and then like trying to find other people, like holding the gun up to your face and firing. Like all these things just make it so immersive. It's so stressful because you really get like your heart rate goes up when you're playing these things. You start to sweat. I do anyway. I start to sweat when I'm playing these things.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I want to go prone, so what do? I lay down on the fucking floor.
Yeah. If I know I'm gonna
It's a
be
lot of
like that,
fun.
I have to get a mat out just to because otherwise it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's like that guy.
I put like really thick padding in my office under the carpet so I can do stupid shit like that.
Hilarious. It's like the image of the guy
Like,
who puts
all that
the
reloading
helmet
stuff
on and
is-
then dives right into the TV and cracks
Oh
it.
yeah. That's hilarious. But like the reload, I love the reloading, and it's got to a point now. If I play, say I play Call of Duty, if I play that, when you reload a gun, the guy's like, "I've got to reload. I've reloaded." And in VR, you're just like, done. And it's like, but it's now another like mechanic in the game that's so fun to do. And I just think that's super cool. And you got to remember, is there a round in the chamber? And you look in the magazine, how many bullets are in there? And that's crazy, but it's so cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you
that
played
is
the
really
Vader
cool.
Immortal games?
I haven't, no.
Oh man, those are pretty good because Star Wars and lightsabers, right? And you actually use a lightsaber to pretty convincing effect where
Yeah.
you know you can deflect like gunshots, but you also have to spar with Darth Vader himself, who is like 7 feet tall in the game, and the game knows how tall you are, so you're looking up at a very like like impressive like being. Like it's a cool
That's cool.
cool effect.
Even though you're holding a lightsaber, do you still go like that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Very cool. So let's see. We're coming up to the end of the show here, but I did want to mention that Xbox has its 20th anniversary they had a stream. They showed a whole kind of documentary on starting out the inception of Xbox all the way up until today, and then they did the surprise, not surprise, but surprise launch of Halo Infinite multiplayer, which that was really silly, right? Like last week, it was like, what's going on here? It's being listed on the 15th, and then people were like, oh, that's the anniversary of Combat Evolved, and oh, there's a 20th anniversary show that's scheduled as well. Could it be actually launching? And then sure enough, here we are.
Here it is.
It's out.
It's in beta, but like how Fortnite was in beta for 20 years. You know?
Yeah.
Is Fortnite still in beta?
It might still be in beta. It's all there. You can access everything. The season pass is available. So it says beta, but multiplayer is fully launched.
Yeah. All the maps, modes, all that stuff. And cool.
Did you guys hear about the Pringles countdown? So this was like a lot of people's evidence for Halo Infinite coming out today, was that Pringles had a collab with them for XP, and they had a countdown leading to Monday. Well, apparently Pringles, that's just when Pringles was launching their thing. They had no idea that the multiplayer was launching.
Connection?
Xbox didn't tell them. But yeah, there is a connection because they're like, yeah, obviously our XP is launching when the game comes out, but Xbox didn't tell them that it was launching. So they were like unwilling participants, I guess.
That is hilarious. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Once you pop, you just can't stop.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I plan on playing a lot of multiplayer this week. Halo. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Jumping in, getting the feel of the different maps and all that.
Well, what do you play it on? Is it crossplay?
It is crossplay.
Is it with
Yeah,
PC though?
Yeah, I was watching Fallout play with Cool Guy. Cool Guy was on Xbox, Fallout was on PC. They were cross-playing together.
I wonder if it's the same type of thing as Destiny though, where like now they're in
You
the
go to
PC
PC lobbies.
population. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, there is mouse and keyboard support on the Series X, or Xbox.
True.
So I wonder if maybe if you're on a mouse and keyboard, then it defaults you, or maybe it splits it based on input devices.
Could do. Possible. Yeah, I'm not sure how they do it.
Yeah.
I had this weird issue on PC where I was getting low frame rate for some reason. This is really bizarre. So I had a minimum frame rate of 60 frames and a max frame rate of 144. And for some reason, the game would only be about 70 frames. I'm like, this is wrong. This doesn't make sense. And then I set the minimum to about 99. That was the most I could put it. And then I had frame rates up to 130.
Oh, weird.
That doesn't make
That
any
is weird.
sense. Yeah.
It's like I can do it, but it's like I choose not to.
Yeah.
Strange.
That's weird.
That's weird.
I do know that the beta stuff was having performance issues on PC, obviously. So I don't know.
It's the beta. So yeah, Halo Infinite is still chewing people's computers. Like it's putting work on people's computers.
Yeah.
So that's why Mylan wanted to build a new computer to have 2 PC setup for Halo launch.
Yeah.
Because it's really demanding on computer.
I loaded it up on my Series X and it plays nice.
Yeah.
Does it run 120 frames on Series X? Do they have
I don't
120
know.
frame?
My
mode?
TV is only 60. I'm playing on 75-inch,
fuck?
60 hertz, 4K.
What are you even
TV.
doing out there in California?
It's the bedroom setup. What can I say? You know, the chilling.
I'm sorry, the 75-inch bedroom set.
Yeah, we have a big master bedroom. What can I say? It's far on the other side.
You just got to enhance it by playing through the preview window. Don't forget.
Yep.
Cool. Well, exciting, right?
Yeah, it's all exciting times for games.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Alex, thank
I'm
you so
gonna
much.
give it a go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
No,
it
it's
was
great.
really
Thank you.
interesting to hear about it because especially as like you said, every composer does stuff differently. So it's really interesting to see what someone's process is.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I do get worried that I just talk gibberish and it doesn't.
Not at all.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again. Where can people find your stuff? You obviously the latest album and anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me. Well, there's my YouTube channel. I think you just search Alex Roe and you find me easily. But there's my Bandcamp, Alex Roe, and Spotify. A lot of people ask for Spotify these days, so
Yeah.
Alex Roe on Spotify as well.
Cool. Yeah.
Throw
I
on
mean,
some throw on the Elden Lords album while you wait for Elden Ring.
yeah. Throw it
Definitely.
on. Go play some Bloodborne with that on
Yeah,
the
I can play
background.
some Bloodborne with that in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
12
Or Dark Souls
FPS.
3, right? Cool. Well, that is episode 118 of DCP SideQuest. Thank you so much for hanging out and joining us. Shout out to our Patreon members and our Twitch subs. You guys are awesome. And yeah, thanks for everyone just tuning in and chilling. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Good times.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.